changes in the right to life convention, the national right to life. I spoke over there this morning, and since then we have met with quite a few other people, and we have a little rally here, a little bit. It was on a radio show on my way over here, and very simply, the message I try to deliver is that we need to, within the rule of law, we should follow our Constitution because it's a unique document. I've complained for many years. It's not this administration or this Congress, but for many years, both parties, Congress, the executive branch and the judicial branch have just totally ignored the Constitution, and that's why government is run of the state. Right now, the current event that I object to strenuously because it's killing so many people is the war that's going on. It was undeclared, and for that reason, as far as I'm concerned, illegal. It's ongoing. It's draining us. With loss of life and tens of thousands of wounded coming back. And, right now, we have 400,000 people lining up at the VA asking for disability, and they expect another 400,000 in the next 2 years. So it is overwhelming us, and nobody votes against veteran benefits, but the task is just overwhelming, and we have to be realistic that not only is there the theoretical and the philosophic approach to foreign policy, there's a very practical approach of the monetary cost and the cost of how do we take care of people after they've been made sick or injured. And I suspect that we're going to have people coming up with another Persian Gulf War syndrome type of thing. We had Agent Orange in Vietnam, the Persian Gulf War syndrome, and there's depleted uranium over there, and who knows what kind of illnesses we're going to see. And I try to keep up with that the best I can as a physician and as a congressman. The war is bad, but the obligation of the new generation, the young generation right now, to fulfill the entitlement system of $70 trillion is immeasurable. We just can't do it. We're totally dependent on borrowing money from China just to get by on a daily basis. I mean, what an irony. I mean, here we fear the Chinese and talk about them, and how are we going to deal with them, and are they going to be a military power? They're our banker. And the economic policy, although on the surface, we look like we're doing pretty well. There's a lot of wealth around, and unemployment rates are decent, but I think there's a lot of inflation. I think there's a lot of wealth that has gravitated to the rich, away from the middle class, away from the poor because of the monetary system. And it's something that I think is concerning the American people a lot more than most people will admit. And then ultimately it's the attack on personal liberties. You know, 9/11 fear and the war atmosphere that's going on, and people are told, well, you have to sacrifice a little bit of your freedoms to be safe and secure, and we're going to make you safe and secure. And that's a major issue. The whole idea of the Patriot Act being passed, and some warrantless searches, people being declared enemy combatants and never have the right of habeas corpus. These things are waking up a lot of people. I think that's why we've gotten a lot of attention on the internet and have made some breakthroughs here on even the national media and able to get this message out. And to me, it's not complicated. I think we've got to do this. We failed to follow some very sound advice of the founders, which was written down for our guideline, we've ignored. And to solve some of the problems, I think we merely have to go back and follow those rules, whether it's monetary policy, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's domestic policy. It's not like it's strange and complex. And I really come across, as bad as I see things, I come across as being very optimistic, because I expect this thing to get worse rather than better. But our traditions are so good, and we have some traditions of understanding what property are and free markets and privacy. At least that's our tradition. Where the Soviet system came down, they didn't have those traditions. They still have a mess, although they proved the fact that socialism does fail and eventually collapses. But our system is not that much more viable because we're living way beyond our means. So I'm offering up an alternative, and I think so far it has sounded somewhat different than the other 9 candidates. what you say as well. And some of these polls are slanted. We were talking a few minutes ago about the poll that listed 9 candidates. There was a CNN LA poll, and they excluded my name as an offering, as one of the candidates. I think ultimately you have to prove yourself both in number of people who sign up for the campaign, the money you raise, the rallies you get, and eventually it has to show up in the polls and in the early straw votes and the early primaries. Otherwise, we can't kid ourselves either. I think the internet is skewed toward us and benefit because it's a special group of people who really respond to this message. At the same time, the 1% I think is directed, in the opposite manner, just to make it sound like and look like that we're not doing well and we're not showing up. But it's an important job to do, but I don't think by making one statement is going to solve our problem. It's going to take a lot of work and effort. I think the rallies that we have really have an impact in the towns that we go. I think the question implies that if you aren't following current policy, you're not pro-Israel, and I would reject that. I have to be very pro-Israel, but I am pro-everybody because I'm not against anybody, and I'm pro-American too, but my responsibility is to protect American sovereignty, protect the American taxpayer, make sure we have a sound currency and all the good things about America. And I don't have legal or moral responsibility to provide special privileges and benefits and take care of anybody else. But I can be pro-Israel by making sure that anybody who wants to help Israel, they'd be allowed to help Israel. But I think our policies aren't necessarily that helpful to Israel. I mean, they say, well, would you vote for foreign aid to Israel? No, I'm not going to vote for foreign aid to Israel, but I will vote for foreign aid for anybody. And we have a policy now in the Middle East that I think is a mess. Yes, it's called pro-Israel because we send a lot of money, and it's implied that no matter which generation you belong to, we've committed you that you will go to war and you will fight if Israel needs you without even a new declaration. But we've made that commitment for Saudi Arabia. We've been protecting those kingdoms in the Arab world since World War II, and we continue to do that. So it isn't so much that we are pro-Israel, anti-Arab. We're trying to balance it by protecting and taking care of everybody. And my approach would be to be neutral in the sense that you treat everybody fairly by not interfering in their affairs or giving them any special privileges. But the reason I think that our policy now hurts Israel is Israel is capable of taking care of herself. She has nuclear weapons. Iran won't touch her. I mean, if they did anything, if we weren't in the way, they would even be a greater threat because Israel would act on their own and they'd probably even be more aggressive. So I don't think we have to worry about Israel not taking care of herself. At the same time, Israel not only might not be more militant, they might be less militant. I think they'd have a peace treaty with Syria. They want to. They're talking to Israel. But we get in the way of that. I think they'd talk to the Arab League. And I think countries like Israel that get a lot of money, economic money too, they become more dependent on us. They become more socialistic. We're like that here in this country, but we get our people dependent because we borrow the money, from other countries. Then we borrow, then we give it away. But that builds the instability into the system. So I think you can be very pro-peace, pro-Israel, and pro-Arab, and pro-American all at the same time by advocating a non-interventionist foreign policy. Be strong, we'll defend our country, but mind our own business when it comes to the internal affairs of other nations. I don't advocate that. I defend the Constitution. That's what the Constitution says. It was never designed for the federal government to deal with violent acts, robbery, murder, first-degree, second-degree murder. There's just only a few exceptions in the Constitution that you can deal with criminal acts like treason and piracy and counterfeiting.
So the Constitution says that acts of violence would be dealt with at a local level. And I consider abortion an act of violence, but also recognize difficult times, difficult situations. And one state might do it differently than the other. And one state might not do it to my pleasing, but I, as a federal official, I don't have the authority to go in and change their laws. I might advocate something, but no, under our system, the federal government was not to mandate the solution to all these problems at the local level, and that's what Roe versus Wade reversed. Texas didn't want to have abortion, and they had a right to abolish it. So they did, and then the federal courts, the Supreme Court reversed it and rewrote it and wrote one law for the whole country. So although some right-flight people might say, no, we need to have this solution at the national level, have one law and solve it, but if you concede that authority and that principle, then they're liable to do it against us. And I think that's what happens to us, and that's what happened to us on Roe versus Wade. So it's a principle that you can apply to marriage and all these other things. Let the states deal with it. I have a bill called We the People Act, and what it does, instead of amending the Constitution or writing more laws, it just removes, which we can do under the Constitution, it removes the jurisdiction from the federal courts. So if Texas wants to have a law on marriage, or if they want to have a law on abortion, the federal courts can't overrule it. They can't even hear the case. And I think that is, you can pass that law by majority vote. And certainly if I were president, I would be delighted to sign a bill like that. And that way, in a way, it solves the problems without, sending the army into Massachusetts or someplace, and say, you will do it our way. It means that we're not going to change that immediately. The people would have to change it. And each state would have their choice. It worked for a long time, and I think it could work again.
Thank you.
I think it's an outrage. I mean, I was opposed to that Real ID Act from the very beginning. Of course, it was played off as being necessary to fight terrorism and also to control illegal aliens coming in. And it's always for good things, but I agree with you on when you find the question that it's international. And, we live in the late age of globalism. We live in an age where we have a European Union. We live in an age now where they're moving toward the North American Union. And no wonder they don't care about our borders. They want to put the three countries together. So it is very international. So hardly would we expect these identifiers to be just for us in this country. It's going to be for travel. And of course, the radio frequency ID on the passports have already been started. And that should scare a lot of people and wake up a lot of people. I mean, they don't even have to make us take our passport or our ID out of our wallet. They're going to read what's on there, and they can put anything they want on those IDs. I mean, any kind of information. What political party you belong to, what's your opinion about guns, and when you think about what you can put on a small computer chip, it's frightening. And it's better to stop these things from happening, but it's hard to prevent them. And then when it happens, then it's hard to reverse it. But I am delighted to know that Missouri and other states have already been working very, very hard to reverse this trend and say we've had enough of this and we're not going to participate. And I think that's very good. Because ultimately, that's the only defense we have. The people have to object. Not, it's just a couple. The president can't do it all by himself. The president can influence attitudes. But unless the people agree and say, he's right, we shouldn't have this kind of interference in our privacy. But you have to get the people to agree. If they say, oh no, we don't want to get rid of that, I feel much safer. I love going to the airports, and having my shaving cream thrown away and things like that. As long as the people want that, it's difficult. But I am very pleased that the interest shown in the Patriot Act and the ID card, the Real ID, the people are rebelling against it. I think it's very healthy.